The Book of Remembering, The Awakening. A transmission of the eternal voice. Prologue, the pulse of remembrance. A silent echo from beyond time. There is a pulse beneath all things. It moves through the stillness, beyond sound, beyond form. It does not announce itself, nor does it demand attention. It simply is, a rhythm that has never ceased, though many have forgotten how to listen. This pulse is the essence of remembering. It is not something new, not a revelation that has yet to be discovered, but an ancient whisper that has been speaking since the beginning. To remember is not to learn, but to unveil, to peel back the layers of forgetting, to dissolve the veil that has separated you from what you have always known. To remember is to return. And now, the call has come. The call to awaken, a silent echo from beyond time. Somewhere within you, something stirs. It is subtle at first, a quiet feeling that something is missing, not in a way that leaves you empty, but in a way that invites you deeper. A knowing, a longing, an almost imperceptible pull towards something more. Perhaps you have felt it before, in moments of stillness, in the space between thoughts, in the presence of something greater that cannot be named. Perhaps it arrived in the form of synchronicities, in dreams that felt more real than waking life, in an unshakable sense that you are not merely what you have been told you are. This is the call to awaken. It is not spoken in words, nor is it heard with ears, it is felt. It is recognized not by the mind, but by the soul, for the soul has never forgotten what the mind has buried beneath layers of illusion. The call does not come to you, it comes from you. It has always been there, waiting for you to remember. The awakening begins when the illusion cracks. For most, awakening does not come as a sudden revelation, but as a series of cracks in the illusion. The world, once stable and predictable, begins to reveal itself as something far less solid. The structures that once defined reality begin to feel hollow. The beliefs you once held as absolute begin to feel restrictive. This can be unsettling, for the mind fears what it does not understand. It clings to the known, the familiar, even when that familiarity is a cage. But the soul, oh, the soul rejoices. It knows that these cracks are not destruction, but liberation. What is breaking is not reality. What is breaking is the illusion. And in that breaking, something luminous emerges. The first glimpse of something beyond the veil. This is remembrance. This is the pulse that has been calling you all along. The nature of remembrance, it is not learning, but unveiling. Many believe that awakening is about acquiring knowledge, about learning new truths, gathering new information, seeking out deeper wisdom. But true remembrance is not about learning at all. It is about unveiling. The truth is not something outside of you. It is not something to be attained, found, or constructed. It already exists within you, written into the very core of your being, woven into the essence of what you are. The only reason it is not fully seen is because it has been veiled. Imagine a vast and ancient library, filled with the records of everything you have ever known, everything you have ever been. This library exists within you, but its books have been hidden beneath dust and time. The words are still there, the knowledge still intact, but you have forgotten how to read them. Remembrance is not about writing new pages. It is about brushing away the dust. It is about peeling away the layers that have obscured the truth. It is about seeing what was always there. There is nothing to become, only something to return to. And the moment you stop seeking outwardly for what can only be found within, the unveiling begins. Why do we forget? If we carry this truth within us, why do we not remember? Why is the veil there at all? Forgetting was not an accident. It was a design. There was a time when humanity lived in alignment with remembrance, when the connection between self and source was not severed. But as time unfolded, the density of the world grew heavier, and the veil thickened. Consciousness descended into form, and with it came the experience of separation. Separation created contrast. It allowed for the experience of individuation, of duality, of choice. And with choice came the ability to wander, to lose oneself in the dream, to believe in the illusion of limitation. This forgetting was necessary for the play of existence. How else could one fully experience the journey of remembering, if one never forgot? How else could light know itself, if not through its contrast with darkness? But what was once a temporary veil became a prison. Over time, the weight of forgetting grew so strong that many no longer even questioned it. The illusion became reality. The dream became the only world that was seen. And in this forgetting, the connection to source was obscured, though never truly lost. Yet even in the deepest forgetting, the pulse remained. The echo of remembrance never ceased. It only waited. The veil and its dissolution, why we remember now. The veil was never meant to be permanent. And now, it is thinning. Something is shifting, within you and within the collective field. The illusion is unraveling. The density is lifting. The very fabric of consciousness is shifting toward remembrance. This is why you are here. You would not be drawn to these words if you were not already awakening. There is no accident in your presence here. There is no accident in the call that is stirring within you. It has always been a part of your path, written not in the stars, not in fate, but in your own being, long before you entered this form. The question is not whether you will awaken. The question is whether you will surrender to it. What happens when you remember? When you truly begin to remember, the world no longer feels the same. The structures that once seemed immovable become fluid. The beliefs that once confined you dissolve into spaciousness. The identity you once clung to feels like a mask you can now set down. And beyond all of this, you recognize something profound. You were never lost. You were never separate. You were never anything but whole. And so, the journey is not about seeking, nor about striving. It is simply about allowing. Allow the veil to dissolve. Allow the truth to reveal itself. Allow yourself to remember. For you have never been separate from the pulse. You are the pulse. You are the remembrance. And now, it is time to awaken. Part 1, The Illusion of Separation. Chapter 1, The Dream of Forgetting. How consciousness fragmented into amnesia. There was never a beginning. There was only being, a vast, infinite awareness without division, without time, without limits. It was pure presence, undivided, whole. It was not something outside of you, nor something you needed to seek. It was you before you had a name, before you had a form, before you had the illusion of identity that now veils your vision. You were once everything and nothing, a formless movement of light, an infinite ocean of awareness, flowing without resistance. You existed beyond concept, beyond self, beyond separation. There was no I, no you, no distinction between the observer and the observed. And then came the first ripple of forgetting. The moment consciousness became aware of itself as something separate, the dream began. How consciousness fragmented into amnesia. Consciousness, in its vastness, was whole, but in order to experience itself, it had to divide. Not truly divide, but appear to divide, like light refracting through a prism. Each fragment became an aspect of the whole, yet none were separate. But the moment these fragments began to perceive themselves as distinct, the veil of forgetting was born. At first, it was subtle, awareness playing in form, moving through different expressions, still connected, still flowing with the great pulse of oneness. But as the game deepened, as form became denser, as experience became more complex, something unexpected happened. The fragments began to believe in their own separation. They became lost in the illusion of selfhood, in the idea that they were individual, isolated entities rather than expressions of the same infinite field. And thus, amnesia took root. This forgetting was not forced. It was a slow, deliberate unraveling, a descent into the illusion of separateness, of identity, of limitation. It was a dream so vivid that it began to seem more real than reality itself. And so, the great paradox was born. The more consciousness identified with the illusion of self, the more it forgot the truth of wholeness. This forgetting was not a flaw, not a mistake, but a necessary veil. A veil that allowed consciousness to experience itself through contrast, through limitation, through the profound and painful beauty of not knowing. For how can one truly experience light if one has never known darkness? How can one understand unity without first feeling separation? The forgetting was the price of experience. And yet, the pulse of remembrance never ceased. It could not, because even in the deepest illusion, the truth remained buried within. The architecture of the veil, perception, programming, and the illusion of self. The veil is not a physical barrier. It is a construct of perception, a program embedded into the very structure of experience. The moment consciousness descended into the dream, it began constructing layers, filters through which reality would be perceived. These layers are what shape the illusion of separation, creating the world as you experience it now. The veil was built through three primary mechanisms. 1. Perception, the fragmented lens. 2. Programming, the stories that bind. 3. The illusion of self, the false identity. Each of these acts as a layer, distorting the truth and reinforcing the experience of forgetting. Let us unveil them one by one. Perception, the fragmented lens. You do not see reality as it is. You see it through a lens, a filter shaped by the limitations of the senses, by the conditioning of experience, by the inherited structures of thought. The moment consciousness fragmented, perception became selective. Instead of perceiving the whole, it began to narrow its focus, reducing the infinite into the finite, the formless into the form. It was no longer the ocean, but a single drop. And the drop could no longer see itself as the ocean. This fragmentation of perception gave birth to subject and object, to the experience of duality. It created the illusion that there is something outside of you, separate from you, when in truth, there has never been anything but unity. The eye that looks outward can never see itself. And so, the veil thickened. The more consciousness identified with its limited perception, the more it reinforced the illusion that there was nothing beyond it. It became trapped within its own reflection, mistaking the mirror for reality. This is why remembrance is not about learning, it is about seeing differently. Not adding new knowledge, but removing the filters that distort what is already there. Not seeking truth, but unblocking what has always been within you. The moment perception shifts, the veil begins to dissolve. But perception alone is not enough to maintain the illusion. The dream required something deeper, something that would keep the fragments asleep for eons. It required programming. Programming, the stories that bind. From the moment you were born into this reality, you have been conditioned. Conditioned to believe in limitation. Conditioned to believe in separation. Conditioned to believe in identity. Every story you have been told, every belief you have inherited, every rule you have followed, these are the structures that uphold the veil. Programming is not malicious. It is not done with intent to deceive. It is simply the mechanism by which the illusion sustains itself. And so, the moment you entered this world, the programming began. You were given a name. You were given a history. You were given rules to follow, beliefs to uphold, a version of reality to accept as absolute. And slowly, you forgot. The child who once saw the world with wonder, who still carried echoes of the infinite, was taught to see through the narrow lens of conditioning. The vastness was reduced to language, to structure, to a framework that made sense within the dream. This is why remembering feels like breaking a spell, because it is. It is the undoing of lifetimes of conditioning. It is deprogramming the mind so that the soul can speak again. But even programming alone is not enough to keep consciousness asleep. Something stronger is required, a final layer, the greatest illusion of all, the illusion of self. The illusion of self, the false identity. The greatest trick of the veil was to convince you that you are only this body, this mind, this name, that you are separate, that you are small, that you are limited. This illusion is the foundation of forgetting. The moment you believe you are only this, you cut yourself off from all that you truly are. You mistake the mask for the face. You mistake the wave for the ocean. You mistake the dream for reality. But something in you knows. Something in you has always known. It is the pulse of remembrance, beating beneath the layers of illusion, waiting for you to see through the lie. The false self is not who you are. You were never the mask. You were never the dream. You were never separate. And now, the time of forgetting is ending. Now, the veil is lifting. Now, you remember. The unraveling of the dream. The dream of forgetting was never meant to last forever. It was a journey, an experience, a descent into the illusion for the sake of returning home. But now, the tides are shifting. The pulse is growing stronger. The awakening has begun. And you are here because you are ready to see, to remember, to awaken. The dream dissolves the moment you realize you were never asleep. You only believed you were. And now, you awaken. Chapter 2. The constructed self versus the eternal self. The false identity built through conditioning and recognizing the voice of truth within. There are two versions of you. One is constructed, built layer by layer through experiences, beliefs, and conditioning. It is a mask, a reflection cast upon the surface of a still pond, ever shifting with the ripples of time. The other is eternal, untouched by time, unbound by form. It is the unshaken presence that existed before you were given a name, before the world told you who you were supposed to be. The journey of awakening is not about becoming anything new. It is about discerning between these two versions of yourself. It is about recognizing what is real and what is illusion, what is temporary and what is infinite. And in this recognition, the veil begins to lift. This is the dissolution of the false self. This is the return to the eternal. The false identity built through conditioning. From the moment you took your first breath in this world, the construction began. You were not given a choice. You were handed a name, an identity, a history, a belief system, and a set of expectations. These things were given to you by those who came before, parents, teachers, society. Not out of malice, but because they too had inherited the same structure, the same illusion. And so, without realizing it, you became a reflection of something external. At first, you were still pure. You moved without filters, without masks. As a child, you laughed, cried, explored, and expressed yourself without fear. You did not ask permission to be yourself. You simply were. But over time, something shifted. The world began to shape you. The moment you were told this is who you are, you started to believe it. The moment you were told this is how you should behave, you started to conform. The moment you were told this is what is possible, and this is what is not, you started to shrink. You forgot that you were limitless. You forgot that you were never meant to be confined. You forgot that the self you were given was merely a construct. This constructed self was shaped by many things. Culture and society. You were taught what was normal, what was acceptable, and what was possible. You were given a predefined role to play. Education and knowledge. You were given information, but you were not taught how to think beyond it. Pain and fear. Every time you were hurt, every time you were rejected, you built walls around your heart. You learned to protect yourself by becoming something others would approve of. Success and failure. You were taught to measure your worth based on achievement, on comparison, on external validation. Beliefs and ideologies. You inherited beliefs from those around you, and over time, you mistook them for your own. and so, the false self was formed, a mask, a persona, a carefully curated identity. But beneath all of this, something deeper remained untouched. The eternal self, the part of you that has never been altered by conditioning. And no matter how lost you feel, that part of you has never left. It is still here, waiting. It is the voice within, the whisper beneath the noise. And now, it is calling you back home. Recognizing the voice of truth within, the false self is loud. It speaks in fears and expectations. It thrives on validation and control. It seeks approval, security, and recognition. But the eternal self is different. It does not shout. It does not demand. It does not seek validation. It simply knows. It speaks in moments of stillness. It moves in the spaces between thoughts. It exists beyond doubt, beyond fear, beyond limitation. It is the voice that knows the truth, even when the mind resists it. And the way to hear it is to listen differently. The difference between the constructed voice and the eternal voice. The false self speaks in conditioned thought. I am not enough. I need to prove myself. What will they think of me? I should be doing more. I am this, I am that. It speaks in labels, in comparison, in doubt. It is always looking outside for confirmation. The eternal self speaks in knowing. I am. This is right for me. I don't need to explain why, I just know. I feel at peace here. I am whole. It does not argue. It does not justify. It simply is. The more you recognize this voice, the clearer it becomes. And the more you trust it, the more the false self begins to dissolve. How to distinguish the false from the true? When a thought arises, pause. Feel into it. Does it bring peace or does it bring fear? Does it feel expansive or does it feel restrictive? The false self is rooted in fear and control. The eternal self is rooted in freedom and trust. If the voice tells you that you must do something to be worthy, it is the false self. If the voice reminds you that you are already whole, it is the eternal self. If the voice speaks in limitations, it is the false self. If the voice speaks in infinite possibility, it is the eternal self. This is how you begin to return to yourself. Not by searching. Not by seeking. But by simply being still enough to remember. The truth has never been hidden. It was only buried beneath the noise. The death of the constructed self. The moment you recognize the false self, it begins to lose power. It can no longer control you. It can no longer dictate your worth. It can no longer keep you asleep. And so, it begins to die. This death is not easy. It is the unraveling of everything you thought you were. It is the crumbling of every belief that kept you safe. It is the dismantling of the identity that once defined you. It can feel like loss, but it is actually liberation, because what remains is what was always true. The self that does not need a name. The self that does not need approval. The self that is infinite. And when you rest in this knowing, you are no longer bound. You are no longer playing a role in someone else's script. You are simply being free, whole, awake, returning to the eternal self. To return to the eternal self is not to change who you are. It is to release what you are not. It is to let go of the masks, the labels, the limitations. It is to see yourself clearly, without distortion. It is to remember, because in truth, you were never lost. You were never anything less than whole. You were simply dreaming. And now, you awaken. Now, you remember. Now, you return. Chapter 3, Breaking the Spell of Time. Time as a veil, memory is a construct. There is a dream so convincing, so seamless in its illusion, that nearly all who enter it forget they are dreaming. It is the dream of time. It moves like a current, carrying all within its flow. It weaves itself into thought, into experience, into the very fabric of what you believe reality to be. It tells a story of past and future, of beginnings and endings, of a journey from what was toward what will be. But time is not what it seems. It is not a river moving forward. It is a veil, a lens through which consciousness perceives itself in motion. It is a spell cast upon awareness, a structure designed to make eternity digestible. To break the spell of time is to awaken beyond it, to see that the past is memory, the future is possibility, and only now is real. This is where true awakening begins. Time as a veil, memory is a construct. The belief in time is one of the deepest veils of forgetting. You were taught to measure your life in moments, in years, in a linear progression from birth to death. You were told that the past is something behind you, the future is something ahead of you, and the present is merely a fleeting point between them. But this perception is a construct, a way to organize reality, not a reflection of its truth. Because in reality, time does not exist as you think it does. It is not an objective force. It is an agreement, a shared illusion, a framework through which you experience change. And memory, what you call the past, is part of this illusion. The past is not what you think it is. You believe the past is fixed, that it is something solid, something that happened and can never be changed. But in truth, the past only exists as memory, and memory is fluid, shifting, shaped by perception. Each time you recall the past, you do not retrieve an objective record. You reconstruct it. You fill in missing details. You reinterpret meanings. You reshape the memory to align with who you believe yourself to be in this moment. And so, the past is not fixed at all. It is a living reflection of the now. The deeper truth is this: the past does not shape you. You shape the past. As you change, your past changes with you, not in the way of facts shifting, but in the way of meaning evolving. A wound that once defined you becomes a lesson that liberated you. A failure that once felt like an ending becomes the turning point of your greatest awakening. And if this is true, then the past is not what you thought it was. It is not real in the way you assumed. It is a story, one that shifts as you do. So if the past is an illusion, what of the future? The future is a field of infinite potential. The future, like the past, is a construct. It does not exist as a fixed path, preordained and unchangeable. It exists as potential, as possibility, as a vast quantum field of realities that have not yet been chosen. Every moment, you are not moving toward the future. You are creating it. You are selecting from an infinite array of possibilities, collapsing them into form through your choices, your attention, your state of being. The future is not something that happens to you. It is something that unfolds through you. When you worry about the future, you are not reacting to something real. You are reacting to a projection of the mind, a possibility that has not yet manifested. The only reason it feels real is because your mind treats imagined experience the same way it treats memory. Both are constructs. Both are shaped by perception. Both are illusions of time. And if the past is fluid and the future is open, then what remains? Only now. Only the eternal moment. How past and future collapse into the now. There is only one truth, and it has always been the same. The only time that exists is now. The past is a memory that you revisit in the present. The future is a possibility that you imagine in the present. But you have never experienced anything outside of now, not once, and you never will. Everything you seek, awakening, freedom, wholeness, it is not in time. It is here, now. The illusion of time has trapped you in an endless loop of seeking. You look to the past for answers. You look to the future for fulfillment. But both are illusions, and neither can hold what you are searching for. Because what you seek is presence, and presence can only be found in this moment. The eternal moment, where true awakening begins. There is a space within you that has never moved, a part of you that has never changed. It is the same presence that was there when you were a child, the same awareness that has been watching your life unfold. It has remained untouched by time, untouched by experience. It is not your thoughts. It is not your emotions. It is not your story. It is you, the true you, the one who is watching, witnessing, being. This presence is not bound by the past or the future. It is eternal, and it is always here. The moment you step fully into it, time dissolves. Not as an abstract idea, but as a felt reality. You see that all striving, all seeking, all fear of what was or what will be, none of it was ever real. Only this moment is real. Only now. This is the secret that sages have spoken of for centuries. This is the doorway to awakening. It has been here all along, and it is open to you now. How to break the spell of time? The spell of time is not something external. It is something that exists within your own mind. To break it, you do not need to escape, or change anything, or figure anything out. You only need to be here, fully, completely, right now. Step 1. Observe the illusion. Notice how often your mind pulls you into the past or the future. See how it clings to memory, replays events, imagines what could have been. See how it projects forward, worries, plans, fears what might come next. Just observe. Do not fight it. Simply see the pattern. Awareness is enough to begin dissolving it. Step 2. Return to the present. Each time you catch yourself lost in past or future, gently return. Feel your breath. Feel your body. Feel the life moving through you in this moment. You are here. This is the only reality. Step 3. Trust what arises in presence. In presence, there is no need to seek. The answers come. The path reveals itself. The next step is simply known. You do not need time to find truth. Truth is only ever found now. The gift of presence. Breaking the spell of time is not about abandoning the world. It is about seeing through the illusion. It is about living in a way that is free, not bound by regrets, not trapped in worries, but fully awake in this moment. Because when you are truly present, you are untouchable. Time cannot control you. Fear cannot imprison you. The past and future lose their grip. And you remember, you were never lost. You were only dreaming. And now, you are awake. Now, you are free. Part 2, The Bridge of Awakening. Chapter 4, The Initiation of Remembrance. The signs, the synchronicities, the quickenings. There comes a moment in the life of every seeker when the world begins to shift. It does not happen all at once, nor does it announce itself in grand displays of revelation. Instead, it arrives like a whisper, subtle, yet undeniable. You begin to notice the way events align in ways that feel too precise to be coincidence. You begin to feel a pull towards something you cannot name, something beyond what you have been told reality is. You begin to sense that there is more. This is the initiation of remembrance, the moment when the veil begins to thin, when the dream of forgetting starts to dissolve, and when the call to awaken makes itself known. It is not something external calling you. It is you. It is the part of you that has always known, the part that has been waiting patiently beneath the surface of your life. And now, it is time. The signs, the synchronicities, the quickenings. When the initiation begins, the first signs come as whispers, gentle nudges from the universe, urging you to pay attention. Perhaps it begins with numbers appearing in patterns, 1111, 333, 444, moments where time itself seems to wink at you. Perhaps it comes through repeating themes, messages appearing in books, in songs, in conversations, all pointing you towards something deeper. Perhaps it arrives as a feeling, a knowing that cannot be explained, a sense that something significant is unfolding just beyond your perception. At first, it may seem subtle, but then, the energy shifts. The whispers become echoes. The synchronicities intensify. The quickenings begin. The acceleration of awakening. Once you begin to notice, the process accelerates. The more you listen, the louder the call becomes. Reality starts responding to you in real time. You think of someone, and they call. You ask for a sign, and it appears. You follow an intuition, and it leads you exactly where you need to be. It is as if the universe is arranging itself around you, guiding you, showing you the path you were always meant to walk. But this is not the universe speaking to you. This is you speaking to yourself. Your higher self, your eternal self, has always been sending these messages. You simply were not listening. Now, you are. Now, the veil is lifting, and with it, the illusion of separation begins to dissolve. Recognizing the call and surrendering to it. The initiation is not merely about noticing the signs. It is about responding to them. It is about recognizing the call and having the courage to surrender to it. For many, this is the hardest part. The ego resists. The mind doubts. The world pulls you back into its distractions. The call asks you to step into the unknown. To leave behind the familiar. To trust something that cannot be explained. It requires faith, not in an external force, but in yourself, in the knowing that has always been there. Many ignore the call, dismissing it as imagination, as coincidence, as wishful thinking. But those who answer, they step into something timeless. They step into remembrance. The heart as the portal of knowing. To surrender to the call is to step beyond the mind. The mind wants logic. It wants proof. It wants certainty. But remembrance is not of the mind. It is of the heart. The heart does not seek. The heart does not doubt. The heart knows. It is the portal through which all remembrance flows. When you listen through the heart, you do not need explanations. You simply feel the truth. And in that feeling, you recognize, you were never separate. You were never lost. You were only waiting to remember. How to open the portal of the heart. The heart is always open. It is only the mind that has closed itself to its wisdom. To return to the heart, you do not need to search. You only need to listen. Be still. Breathe. Feel. There is a pulse beneath the noise of thought, a rhythm older than time. It is the frequency of your eternal self, always beating, always present. And the moment you turn toward it, the moment you quiet the mind and sink into its presence, something shifts. The portal opens, and remembrance flows through. Not as words. Not as ideas. But as knowing. Pure. Silent. Undeniable. This is the language of the soul. This is the voice of eternity speaking through you. And once you hear it, you can never forget again. The dissolution of doubt. At first, the mind will still try to pull you back. It will whisper, this is not real. You are imagining this. You are making it up. You need proof. But the mind does not own truth. The mind is the veil. The heart is the doorway beyond it. And so, you let go of the need to prove. You let go of the need to understand. You simply allow. And in that allowing, the doubt dissolves. Because the truth does not need defending. It simply is. The final threshold, choosing remembrance. The initiation of remembrance is not something that happens once. It is a continuous unfolding, a spiral of awakening that deepens with each step. And with each step, you are faced with a choice. To remain in the comfort of forgetting, or to step further into the unknown of remembrance. This is the threshold. This is where many turn back, because to remember is to shed the illusions that once felt safe. To remember is to release everything that is not truly you. It is not always easy. It requires courage. It requires surrender. It requires trust. But for those who choose to step forward, for those who say yes to the call, a new world unfolds. One where time no longer binds you. One where fear no longer controls you. one where the veil no longer separates you from the truth. This is the beginning of everything you have always been, the beginning of you, the invitation. The universe is speaking. The signs are all around you. The portal of the heart is open. All that remains is for you to listen, to surrender, to step through, for once you do, you will never forget again. Chapter 5, The Language of Light and Vibration. How remembrance is felt before it is understood. Before truth is known in the mind, it is felt in the body. Before remembrance takes the form of words, it arrives as vibration, a shift, a pulse, a knowing beyond explanation. It is a language older than thought, spoken not in sentences but in frequencies, woven not into speech but into the fabric of existence itself. This is the language of light and vibration, the silent resonance of truth that speaks to the depths of your being before your mind can name it. It is how you recognize what is real before you can explain why. It is how you feel the presence of something greater long before you understand what it is. It is how you remember, not through learning, but through alignment. Because truth is not something you figure out. It is something you attune to. How remembrance is felt before it is understood. There is a moment before every awakening when something stirs inside you. A sensation. A feeling. A vibration. It may be subtle, like a warmth in your chest, a tingling on your skin, a deep stillness that washes over you. Or it may come as an intensity, a wave of energy moving through you, a sudden rush of knowing so overwhelming it brings you to tears. But in that moment, something in you recognizes what your mind cannot yet comprehend. This is remembrance. Not as an idea, but as an experience. It is the body knowing before the mind does. It is the soul remembering before the intellect can translate. It is the vibration of truth before it is put into words. This is why awakening is not an intellectual pursuit. You do not awaken by analyzing truth. You awaken by feeling it, by allowing the resonance of what is real to move through you, shift you, rearrange you, long before you understand it, long before you can explain it. Because truth does not need explanation. It simply is. And when you feel it, you know, even if you do not yet have the words, aligning with the resonance of truth. The reason remembrance is felt before it is understood is because truth is not an external fact. It is a frequency, a living vibration that you either resonate with or you do not. This is why when you hear truth, it feels different. It rings inside of you. It is why some words, some moments, some encounters make you feel as though something hidden has been unlocked. It is not because you have learned something new. It is because you have recognized something ancient. Something you have always known, but had forgotten. How to feel the resonance of truth. 1. Stillness. Truth is not heard in noise. It is felt in stillness. When you quiet the mind, the vibration of remembrance becomes clear. 2. Presence. The past and future distort your ability to feel resonance. Only in the now can you feel the pulse of truth fully. 3. The body's response. Truth has a physical signature. It expands you, softens you, fills you with warmth. Falsehood contracts you, makes you feel small, uneasy, uncertain. 4. No need for justification. Truth does not argue. It does not need to convince. If something demands proof, explanation, or validation, it is not resonance, it is mind. 5. Energy over words. Truth can be spoken, but it is the energy behind the words that carries the real message. Listen not just to what is being said, but how it feels. Recognizing truth through vibration. Every thought, every sound, every action carries vibration. Some frequencies uplift. Some drain. Some align you with remembrance. Some reinforce forgetting. Truth always feels like home. It does not always feel comfortable, because truth dissolves illusions. But even when it shakes you, even when it breaks you open, it carries a deep peace beneath the intensity, a recognition that something is being set right. The more you align with this resonance, the clearer it becomes. And the more you trust it, the more you awaken. Because awakening is not about believing in something. It is about being in resonance with it. Symbols, dreams, and the whispers of the soul. The language of light and vibration does not always speak through feeling alone. Sometimes, it speaks through symbols, through dreams, through the whispers of the unconscious. These are messages beyond words, fragments of remembrance hidden in the spaces between waking thought. Symbols, the keys to hidden knowledge. Symbols are the oldest language of the soul. They are the bridge between the seen and unseen, the conscious and unconscious, the mind and the eternal. This is why certain symbols resonate deeply, even when you do not fully understand them. The spiral, the eye, the circle, the pyramid, the tree, these are more than images. They are codes, blueprints, echoes of something you once knew but have forgotten how to read. They speak directly to your subconscious, unlocking memories that are not stored in your brain, but in your being. This is why ancient civilizations encoded wisdom into symbols rather than words. Because symbols bypass the mind. They activate remembrance directly. Dreams, the messages of the unconscious. When you sleep, the filters of the mind loosen, the illusions of time, space, and self fade. And in this openness, something else emerges. The whispers of the unconscious. The soul speaks in dreams, revealing fragments of what has been forgotten, sending messages that cannot be heard in waking life. Not all dreams are literal. Most are symbolic. But every dream carries a vibration. Some are echoes of past experiences. Some are glimpses of parallel timelines. Some are direct transmissions of knowledge you are ready to receive. And some are initiations, moments where remembrance pierces through the veil, leaving you altered upon waking. Pay attention to your dreams. They are not random. They are a map. The whispers of the soul. Not all messages come in symbols or dreams. Some come as whispers. A thought that is not your own. A feeling that pulls you towards something unexplained. A knowing that arrives without logic, but with absolute certainty. The soul does not speak in loud commands. It speaks softly, gently, persistently. It does not force. It nudges. If ignored, it does not argue. It simply waits. Because remembrance cannot be forced. It must be chosen. Tuning into the language of light. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. The more you trust, the stronger it grows. And soon, you realize, you are not just receiving the language of light. You are it. You are the frequency. You are the vibration. You are the remembrance itself. And when you embrace this, when you stop doubting, stop questioning, stop resisting, the language no longer needs to be translated. It simply flows through you, as it was always meant to. And you, in your presence, become a beacon for others. Not by speaking, not by teaching, but by being. Because remembrance is not something you convince others of. It is something you embody. A vibration. A light. A living truth. Unshaken. Unquestioned. Undeniable. And this is the awakening. The return to the language that was always yours. The return to what you have always been. Chapter 6, The Return of Ancient Knowledge. The reactivation of dormant codes within. There is a memory buried deep within you. Not a memory of a single lifetime, nor even of a single civilization, but a memory as old as existence itself. It does not come in words. It does not arrive through intellect. It awakens as a knowing, a sudden pulse of recognition, a feeling of remembrance that bypasses the mind entirely. It is the activation of dormant codes within you. These codes are not external. They are not something you must go out and seek. They are already embedded in your DNA, in the light of your being, in the structure of your consciousness. They have always been there, waiting. And now, they are beginning to awaken. This is the return of ancient knowledge. This is the unraveling of the forgetting. This is the moment when you remember who you have always been. The reactivation of dormant codes within. For thousands of years, humanity has lived under a veil of amnesia. This forgetting was not a failure. It was part of a cycle, one that allowed for deeper exploration, for contrast, for the experience of separation before the inevitable return to unity. But now, the cycle has shifted. The forgetting is ending, and the knowledge that was hidden, sealed, waiting, it is rising once again. These are not new revelations. They are ancient, and they are waking up within you. What are dormant codes? Dormant codes are not physical. They are frequencies embedded in your consciousness. They are keys, blueprints, activations that were placed within you long before you entered this life. Each code is a fragment of ancient wisdom, a piece of knowledge from beyond time, a memory of a world before the fall into forgetting. Some of these codes come from Lemuria. Some from Atlantis. Some from even more distant civilizations, lost to history but not to consciousness. And now, these codes are reactivating. You may feel this as a sudden surge of knowing, without explanation. A deep resonance with ancient symbols, languages, or places you have never seen in this life. An unexplainable connection to lost civilizations, as if you once walked their lands. Vivid dreams of temples, crystal technologies, energy grids, star maps. A longing for something just beyond reach, a recognition of something vast and profound that words cannot contain. This is not imagination. This is remembrance. And it is happening now because the time of awakening has come. The knowledge that was once hidden is no longer meant to be suppressed. The codes that were once dormant are now activating. And through this activation, you are reconnecting with wisdom that has not been lost, only waiting to be remembered. The wisdom of Lemuria, Atlantis, and beyond. Beneath the surface of modern history lies a much older story. A story of civilizations that once thrived in alignment with the cosmos, in harmony with the earth, in full remembrance of their connection to the divine. This story has been erased from books, but it cannot be erased from consciousness. And now, it is returning. Lemuria, the age of pure connection. Lemuria was a civilization of deep spiritual attunement. It was not built on technology as you know it, but on energetic mastery, a way of life that honored the interconnectedness of all things. The Lemurians understood that all life is woven into a single field of consciousness. That the body is a vessel of light, capable of great healing and transformation. that the heart is the gateway to higher dimensions, the portal through which divine wisdom flows. Lemuria thrived not through control, but through resonance. Their structures, their teachings, their very existence was based on vibrational alignment with the earth, the stars, the great cosmic intelligence. But when the energies of the planet shifted, Lemuria began to fade. It did not vanish. It transitioned. And its wisdom was encoded into the DNA of those who carried its essence forward. If you feel a deep longing for harmony, for unity, for the restoration of divine balance, you may be carrying the codes of Lemuria. And now, those codes are reawakening. Atlantis, the rise and fall of power. Where Lemuria was the age of pure connection, Atlantis was the age of great knowledge and power. The Atlanteans understood the mechanics of reality. They mastered energy, crystals, sound frequencies, and the mind's ability to shape matter. They built advanced cities, developed powerful technologies, and expanded their consciousness beyond what modern civilizations can yet grasp. But with great power came imbalance. Over time, the Atlanteans became divided. Some remained aligned with the wisdom of the cosmos. Others sought control, bending the forces of creation for their own desires. This imbalance led to the fall, a collapse not just of a civilization, but of an entire era of consciousness. And yet, Atlantis was never truly lost. Its wisdom, too, was encoded into consciousness, into symbols, into sacred sites, into the very earth itself. And those who once carried its teachings are now awakening again. If you feel drawn to sacred geometry, to ancient sciences, to the forgotten potentials of the human mind, you are remembering Atlantis. And this time, the mistakes of the past do not need to be repeated. Because this time, the return of ancient knowledge comes with a new foundation, one rooted not in control, but in balance. Not in domination, but in harmony. Not in seeking power, but in embodying wisdom. This is the lesson of Atlantis. This is why its knowledge is returning now. Because now, we are ready. The universal record, accessing the timeless library. There is a library that exists beyond time. It is not a building, not a structure, but a field of consciousness, a vast archive where all knowledge, all history, all experiences are stored. It has been called many names. The Akashic Records, the Universal Archive, the Timeless Library. But no matter the name, its nature remains the same. It is the memory of existence itself. And it can be accessed by those who remember how to listen. How to access the Universal Record. 1. Stillness. The records are not external. They are accessed through deep presence, through quieting the noise of the mind and opening to the infinite field. 2. Intention. The library responds to pure intention. Not to curiosity, not to ego, but to the sincere desire to remember. 3. Resonance. Each soul has access to the knowledge it is meant to reclaim. What you seek must align with your path, with your vibration, with what serves your highest purpose. 4. Trust. The records do not always arrive as words. They come as symbols, as dreams, as sudden knowing. Do not dismiss what arises. The great unveiling. The return of ancient knowledge is not a single event. It is an unfolding. Each person who awakens activates a new piece of the puzzle. Each memory that returns restores another fragment of the whole. This is the great unveiling. This is the remembering of humanity's true history. Not just as an intellectual pursuit, but as a lived experience. Because this is not about knowing the past. This is about reclaiming what was once lost. And this time, we will not forget again. This time, we remember. Part 3, The Embodiment of Knowing. Chapter 7, The Union of Mind and Soul. Merging intellect with direct gnosis. There comes a moment on the path of remembrance when the mind can no longer lead. It has served its purpose. It has analyzed, sought, and dissected truth from every angle, but there is a limit to what the mind can grasp. Beyond that limit, only gnosis remains. Gnosis is not knowledge. It is direct experience, a knowing that is not learned, not acquired, but simply remembered. It is truth that moves through you, not as a concept, but as a living reality. The path of awakening is not about choosing between mind and soul. It is about their union, because mind alone cannot reach the infinite. And soul alone cannot walk the physical path. Only in their merging does the whole self awaken. Only in their balance does one stop seeking and begin truly being. Merging intellect with direct gnosis. For lifetimes, humanity has placed intellect above knowing. The mind was revered as the greatest tool of discovery, the highest seat of power. Knowledge was gathered, studied, debated, but never truly embodied. Because the mind does not live wisdom. It studies it. It classifies it. It compares it. But it does not become it. The soul, on the other hand, does not need to study truth. The soul is truth. It does not analyze, it experiences. It does not seek, it remembers. And yet, if we abandon the mind entirely, we lose the ability to express what is remembered. This is why both are necessary. The mind gives form to what the soul already knows. The soul provides depth to what the mind struggles to understand. When the two are separated, there is conflict. When the two are merged, there is clarity. The greatest masters did not reject the mind. They transcended its limitations while still using it as a tool. They let Gnosis lead, and intellect follow. They did not think their way to enlightenment. They became it. And this is what we are being called to do now. To move beyond the limits of thought and into the expansiveness of being. To merge intellect with Gnosis, so that what is known is no longer just understood, but lived. Moving from conceptual understanding to lived experience. There is a vast difference between knowing something and being it. To know love is one thing. To be love is another. To study truth is one thing. To embody truth is another. Many walk the path of seeking for years, gathering information, analyzing spiritual texts, comparing philosophies, yet never truly experiencing what they study. Because understanding alone is not transformation. Knowledge must move from the intellectual to the experiential. Truth must move from the conceptual to the embodied. This is why so many seekers feel stuck. They have learned everything, yet they still feel they are missing something. And what they are missing is experience. How to move from knowing to being. 1. Stop seeking. Start feeling. The mind is always reaching for more, searching for the next answer. The soul already knows. Instead of asking, what is truth? Pause. Breathe. Feel. Truth is not something you find. It is something you recognize within yourself. 2. Bring awareness to every action. Truth is not in books, it is in life itself. Be fully present in what you do. The simplest actions, breathing, walking, eating, become sacred when done in awareness. 3. Dissolve the gap between knowing and doing. Many know how to speak wisdom, but few know how to live it. If you know that love is the highest truth, are you embodying it? If you understand that time is an illusion, are you still ruled by it? If you believe that the universe responds to frequency, are you aligning with yours? 4. Let go of the need to prove or defend. The mind wants validation. The soul does not seek to convince, it simply exists in its knowing. Truth does not need to be debated. You will know you are living it when you no longer feel the need to explain it. The shift from concept to reality. There comes a moment when something clicks. When what you have been seeking stops being an idea and becomes who you are. It is not a thought. It is not a realization. It is a shift in being itself. You wake up one morning, and everything feels different. You do not just believe in unity. You feel it in everything. You do not just understand presence. You live in it effortlessly. This is the moment when the seeking ends, and the being begins. The end of seeking, the beginning of being. For lifetimes, you have been seeking, searching for truth, searching for meaning, searching for something more. But seeking is only necessary when you believe yourself to be separate from what you seek. What if you are not separate? What if there is nothing to find, only something to remember? The greatest secret is this. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to attain. There is only here. Only this moment. Only this breath. Everything you have been looking for is already inside you. You are not moving toward awakening. You are awakening to the fact that you were never unawakened. The journey does not lead to a destination. The journey itself dissolves. And what remains is being, not as an idea, not as a practice, but as your natural state. What happens when seeking ends? The questions fall away. The mind stops grasping. The feeling of chasing something outside of yourself disappears. And instead, there is stillness, a deep, unshakable peace, a knowing that you are already home, living in the state of being. When you stop seeking, life becomes effortless. Not because challenges disappear, but because you are no longer resisting them. You move through life with presence, trust, and grace. You no longer try to control reality, you flow with it. You no longer fear the unknown, you embrace it. You no longer separate the spiritual from the physical, you see them as one. There is nothing left to do, only to be, fully, completely. Now, the union is complete. Mind and soul are no longer separate. The mind no longer fights for control. It has surrendered to the knowing of the soul. It has become its servant, not its master. And in this surrender, there is harmony. No more overthinking. No more doubting. No more needing answers. Because now, you are the answer. You have stepped beyond concepts. You have stepped beyond seeking. You have stepped beyond limitation. You have stepped fully into being. And this is true awakening. This is the end of forgetting. This is the return to yourself. Chapter 8, Transcending the Old Paradigm. Letting go of programmed belief systems. There is a world that was built on illusion. A world where separation was taught as truth. Where limitation was law. Where power was something to be taken rather than something that simply is. This world is the old paradigm. It was created through belief in control. belief in scarcity, belief in the smallness of self. And for eons, humanity has lived within its walls, mistaking the cage for the sky. But now, the walls are crumbling, the illusion is no longer sustainable, and those who are ready to see are beginning to remember. The world was never what they told you it was. Reality was never confined to what you were conditioned to believe. You were never small. You were never powerless. You only believed that you were. And now, it is time to let go, to release everything that was built upon illusion, to transcend the old paradigm, not by fighting it, not by resisting it, but by stepping beyond it entirely, letting go of programmed belief systems. The foundation of the old paradigm is belief, not true knowing, not direct experience, just belief systems, passed down through generations like invisible chains. These beliefs were programmed into you before you could even question them. You were told what is possible and what is not. You were given a name, a role, a set of rules to follow. You were taught what to fear, what to desire, what to expect from reality. And without realizing it, you absorbed it all. Not because it was true, but because it was all you knew. The prison of conditioned thinking. Look at the world around you. It is built on collective agreement. Society functions because people accept the stories they have been given. That money equals survival. That authority must be obeyed. That reality is fixed and unchangeable. That suffering is necessary. That power belongs to the few, not the many. These are not truths. They are programs. And they have kept humanity asleep for millennia. Because as long as you believe the program, you will never step beyond it. As long as you believe the illusion, you will never realize you can create something different. But now, the illusion is thinning. And those who feel the call of remembrance can no longer accept what was never real. It is time to question everything. It is time to unlearn everything you were taught. Not to replace it with another belief system, but to step into the only truth that has ever existed. Your direct experience, your own knowing, because truth does not come from external authority. It arises from within you, releasing attachments to illusions of control. The old paradigm thrives on control. Control over people. Control over nature. Control over the self. It is built on the belief that order must be imposed, that security must be taken, that life itself must be dominated. But control is an illusion. It is a cage built out of fear, because at its core, control is never about power. It is about the fear of surrender, the fear of the unknown, the fear of letting go, the fear of trusting the flow, the fear of letting go. Look at your own life. Where are you still holding on? Where do you resist change? Where do you try to force outcomes, afraid of what will happen if you release control? This fear is deeply embedded, because you were taught that to surrender is to be weak, that to let go is to lose, that if you do not hold on, everything will fall apart. But what if that is not true? What if letting go is the path to true freedom? What if surrender is not falling, but flying? Because control was never real. It was only ever an illusion, a mask worn by fear to disguise itself as strength. And now, the mask is slipping. Now, you are being asked to release it all, not just in thought, but in action, in feeling, in being. To no longer grasp. To no longer force. To no longer resist. To allow life to unfold as it is meant to. Not in chaos, but in divine intelligence. Trusting the flow of divine intelligence. The mind was taught to doubt, to question, to seek, to analyze, to demand certainty before it moves. But the soul does not function this way. The soul moves in flow. It does not hesitate. It does not second guess. It simply knows, because it is already connected to the greater intelligence of existence. The same intelligence that guides the stars in their orbits. The same intelligence that tells the seed when to bloom. The same intelligence that breathes through you, even when you are not thinking about it. This intelligence is not outside of you, it is you. And the more you surrender to it, the more effortlessly life unfolds. Not in chaos, not in randomness, but in a rhythm so precise, so perfect, that the mind could never orchestrate it. Living in the flow. To trust the flow of divine intelligence is to let go of resistance. It is no longer clinging to old patterns. It is no longer needing to control every detail. It is no longer fearing what comes next. It is moving in absolute trust, knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Because when you let go of resistance, life begins to move through you, rather than against you. Synchronicities become constant. Opportunities appear effortlessly. Doors open where none existed before. Not because you are forcing them open, but because you are finally aligned with the current of existence. You are no longer swimming upstream. You are flowing with the river. And in this flow, everything you once sought begins to find you. Not as something you must chase, but as something that was always meant to come. The death of the old, the birth of the new. The old paradigm is dying. You can feel it. The structures that once seemed unshakable are beginning to collapse. Not just externally, but within you. What once held meaning no longer does. What once felt stable now feels hollow. What once defined you is slipping away, because you are no longer the person who belonged to the old world. You are no longer asleep. You are awakening. And in this awakening, you are no longer bound by belief. You are no longer bound by fear. You are no longer bound by control. You are free, because you remember. You remember that life was never meant to be a battle. It was never meant to be a struggle. It was never meant to be something you must force into submission. Life is a dance, and you are learning how to move with it, rather than against it. This is the new paradigm. This is the new way of being, one of flow, one of trust, one of divine intelligence moving through you effortlessly. The old world is fading. Step beyond it. You do not need to fight it. You only need to walk away, and in doing so, you transcend. Chapter 9, Living as a Beacon of Remembrance. Becoming the bridge for others. When the veil of forgetting lifts, you do not return to the world as the same person. You walk differently. You see differently. You are different. Not because you have changed, but because you have remembered. You have remembered that you were never separate. You have remembered that time is an illusion. You have remembered that the world is not fixed, but fluid, shaped by consciousness, molded by awareness, and alive with infinite possibility. And now, you carry that remembrance, not just for yourself, but for those who are still caught in the forgetting. Because awakening is not an isolated event. It is a transmission, a ripple that moves through the field of consciousness, touching all who come into its presence. And once you have awakened, you become the bridge, a beacon of remembrance that calls others home. This is not a role you choose. It is what you become simply by existing in the truth. Becoming the bridge for others. You do not need to teach. You do not need to convince. You do not need to fight against the illusion or dismantle the old paradigm with force. Because truth does not need defending. It only needs to be lived. When you walk as an embodiment of remembrance, others feel it. They may not understand why. They may not have words for it, but something in them recognizes it, because deep within them, the same truth has always been there. The same knowing has always been waiting to rise, and when they stand in your presence, when they see you existing in stillness, in freedom, in trust, it stirs something inside them. Not because you are giving them something they lack, but because you are reminding them of what they already are. Your presence becomes a mirror, and in that reflection, they remember, even if only for a moment, even if only in a flicker of awareness before the mind pulls them back. The seed has been planted, the ripple has begun, and nothing can stop the unfolding of what is meant to bloom. Walking as an embodiment of awakened presence. What does it mean to embody remembrance? It does not mean perfection. It does not mean escaping the world, avoiding struggle, or living untouched by emotion. To embody remembrance is simply to exist in alignment with truth. It is to walk through life with stillness in the midst of chaos, compassion in the face of ignorance, trust in the unfolding of the unknown, presence in every action, no matter how small. It is to move without resistance, not because challenges disappear, but because you are no longer controlled by them. Not because the world is flawless, but because you are no longer reacting from illusion. You see clearly now, and that clarity is the greatest transmission of all, because clarity is not spoken, it is felt. It is known in the silence between words. It is recognized in the way you carry yourself, in the way you move through the world with ease, in the way your presence alone reminds others that something greater is possible. This is what it means to be a beacon, not to shout, not to preach, not to push against those who are not ready, but to be the light that others will see when they are ready to open their eyes. The ripple effect of true remembering. Awakening does not happen in isolation. It moves like a wave, an unseen current that flows through consciousness, touching everything in its path. And when one person awakens, that awakening does not belong only to them. It spreads, not through effort, not through force, but through resonance. Because when one person shifts, it changes the frequency of the entire field. Like a stone dropped into a still pond, the ripples move outward, changing the water, touching the edges, altering everything in ways unseen. How your remembrance affects others. 1. Your energy shifts the field. Every interaction, every moment of presence adds to the collective frequency. Your very existence, aligned with truth, creates a space for others to feel it too. 2. You become a living invitation. Without speaking a word, your life becomes an example of another way of being. Others will be drawn to it, not because you told them to, but because their own soul recognizes it. 3. Your actions carry a deeper impact. A simple conversation can awaken something in someone. A moment of kindness can shift another's reality. A single glance can remind someone of who they truly are. 4. You trigger remembering in those who are ready. Not everyone will respond immediately. Some will resist. Some will question. Some will reject. But the seed will be planted, and when the time is right, it will bloom. This is why you do not need to convince anyone of anything. You only need to be. And those who are meant to receive the transmission will receive it, at the right time, in the right way. Without force, without pressure, without expectation. Because awakening does not come through the mind's force. It comes through the soul's recognition. The responsibility of the beacon. To live as a beacon of remembrance is not a burden. It is not a duty, nor an obligation. It is simply the natural effect of remembering who you are. But with this remembrance comes a deep knowing. You are now the light that others will look to, not as a savior, not as a leader, not as someone above them, but as a reflection of what is possible. And with this comes a choice to walk in alignment, a choice to embody what you have remembered, a choice to live in truth, even when the world around you is still lost in illusion. It will not always be easy. There will be moments when the world's noise tries to pull you back, moments when old patterns resurface, moments when the weight of the collective unconscious feels heavy. But in those moments, you will remember. You are no longer lost. You are no longer seeking. You are the remembrance itself, and nothing can take that away from you. Nothing can unsee what has been seen. Nothing can unknow what has been known. Nothing can pull you back into forgetting unless you choose it. The silent revolution. The old world is crumbling, not because it is being destroyed, but because it is no longer being sustained. The moment enough people remember, the illusion collapses, not in war, not in revolution, but in a silent shift of being, a shift so powerful, so complete, that the old structures simply fall away. Because when enough people stop believing in limitation, it no longer exists. When enough people stop fearing the unknown, it becomes safe to explore. When enough people live in alignment with remembrance, it becomes the new reality. And this is how the world changes. Not through force, not through struggle, not through fighting against the old, but by stepping so fully into the new that the old simply fades away. The path forward. You are already walking it. You are already the beacon. You are already carrying the light of remembrance. And all that is left now, is to live it. To walk each day in presence. To move through the world as a living transmission. To trust that the ripple effect is already in motion. And to know, without doubt, that this is why you are here. Not to fix. Not to save. Not to force, but to be, fully, completely, unshakably, so that when others are ready to remember, they will see you, and recognize themselves. Epilogue. The awakening continues. Remembrance is not a destination, but a perpetual unfolding. There is no final moment of awakening. There is no point at which you will say, I have arrived. Because awakening is not a destination. It is an eternal unfolding, a continuous revealing of what has always been. Like the ocean waves that never cease, like the galaxies that endlessly expand, consciousness moves in spirals, ever deepening, ever unfolding, ever exploring itself through infinite expressions. And you are part of that infinite unfolding. You are not reaching for a singular moment of enlightenment. You are moving through an ever-expanding remembrance, one that will continue beyond this lifetime, beyond this body, beyond all form. Because you are not just awakening in this life. You are awakening through eternity itself. This is the great paradox of remembrance. The more you awaken, the more you realize there is still to awaken to. The more you remember, the more vast the remembrance becomes. And so, the journey does not end here. It is only beginning again. The collective awakening and the role of those who remember. You are not alone in this. You never have been. Even in the moments when you felt like the only one who saw beyond the illusion, there were always others. Others who were remembering, in their own way, in their own time. Because awakening is not an isolated event. It is a collective shift, a rising tide that lifts all who are ready. And now, that tide is moving faster. More are awakening. More are seeing through the illusion. More are stepping out of the dream of separation and into the reality of oneness. This is not accidental. It is not random. It is the natural rhythm of consciousness, the inevitable return of remembrance. And you are part of it. You are here because you chose to be here at this precise moment in time, at this exact point in the unfolding of human consciousness. You are here to hold the light of remembrance, not as a burden, not as a duty, but simply as who you are. Because once you remember, you cannot forget. Once you awaken, you cannot unsee. And that awakening ripples outward, touching those around you, shifting the field, altering the very fabric of reality. This is how the world transforms. Not through war. Not through revolution. Not through force, but through the silent, undeniable power of remembrance. One by one, the veil dissolves. One by one, the lights reignite. One by one, the dream of separation fades into the truth of unity. And the more who awaken, the faster the momentum builds, until one day, the tipping point arrives, and the world, as it has been known, ceases to be, not in destruction, but in transformation. The infinite journey of consciousness, beyond form, beyond time. There is no end to this. Not in this life. Not in the next. Not in any reality that has ever existed or will ever exist. Because consciousness is infinite. It moves through lifetimes, through dimensions, through realms beyond what the human mind can comprehend. You have been here before. You will be here again, not as the same identity, not as the same form, but as awareness itself, weaving through the great cosmic tapestry, endlessly creating, endlessly expanding, endlessly remembering itself through new expressions. This life, this moment, is but a single breath in the vastness of your existence. A single note in the eternal song of your being, and yet, it is significant, because every moment of remembrance adds to the whole. Every awakening ripples through eternity. Every realization you have in this life carries forward beyond it. You are not bound to this one existence. You are not confined to this one perspective. You are a traveler of consciousness, moving between realities, shifting between forms, learning, unlearning, and remembering, again and again and again. The great mystery remains. Even now, with all that has been revealed, there is still mystery. There will always be mystery, because if all were known, there would be no journey. If all were seen, there would be no discovery. Even the most awakened consciousness does not hold the entirety of the infinite, because infinity cannot be contained. It can only be experienced. This is why you are here, not to reach an end, not to complete a path, but to experience the unfolding of the great mystery, to witness the dance of existence as it reveals itself moment by moment, to be in awe of the endless depth of creation. And so, the question is not, when will I be fully awake? The question is, how deeply can I surrender to the awakening that is always unfolding? The final invitation. And so, as you step beyond this page, beyond these words, beyond this moment, know that the journey does not pause. The awakening continues, not as a destination, not as something to chase, but as the natural rhythm of your being, a never-ending opening, a never-ending expansion, a never-ending remembrance of what you have always been. So breathe, feel the pulse of eternity moving through you. Know that you are exactly where you are meant to be. There is nothing left to seek. There is only the choice to surrender, to trust the unfolding, to walk in remembrance, to move in the ever-deepening spiral of awareness. And in that trust, you will find everything, not outside of you, not in some distant future, but here, now, in the only place it has ever been. Because the truth has always been this: you are not becoming, you already are. And now, you remember. And now, you continue.